challenging times of our lives. As an artist collaboration, we've given shape and depth to some of the most complicated topics of our time, making them easily accessible for those who seek to understand. We've given voice and space to the stories that often go ignored. Please take a moment to consider being a patron, make a donation, or join Rockfin. Thank you. Hi, hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Pullquote.
Welcome to Pullquote.
And I wanted to give a shout out to our Rockfin viewers. We have a number of them now. Very good. Thank you for joining and following us. What we're looking for are people to subscribe to our channel. So you can go to rockfin.com/book of hours and join at $9.99 a month. And that will benefit the production of these shows, as well as all the other things that we do. Yesterday we produced another program called Bookmark that we
sorry about that.
That's okay. Julie, it's usually Julie and I just talking about current events, but yesterday we featured a couple of friends from Australia talking about what's going on down there. So we produce Bookmark every other week. We produce Pullquote, which is what we're watching now, what you're watching now, every week. And we bring on a guest of interest. Today we have a really good show with Helen Buyniski, and we'll talk Buyniski. Sorry, I knew I was going to mess it up. But first, I wanted to give another additional pitch. So Rockfin, thank you for subscribing and watching our programs, folks in Rockfin. Those of you out there, if you want to help us, join at $9.99 a month. $9.99, easy for me to say. But if you don't want to join Rockfin and you want to help us through Patreon, we would love to have you at patreon.com/book of hours. For as little as $2 a month, you can help us out, help us produce these programs that you like to see. You can also help us by a donation at paypal.me/book of hours. Or if you don't like anything digital and you want to send us cash or a check or cat food or gift cards, send us an email at info@book-of-hours.com. And we'll send you our address.
And we'll email you back our snail mail address.
Our snail mail address, yeah. So great. So today we have
Helen.
Yeah.
We're really excited about this.
Yeah, it should be a good show. Do you want me to read the intro?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Helen Buyniski, also known as Helen of Destroy, is an investigative journalist, commentator, and photographer based in New York. We're going to talk about what's going on in New York too with her later on. She writes for RT and also has appeared on PressTV, Progressive Radio Network, that's PRN, WBAI, which I think is the Pacifica Network, Activist Post, LBC, and other outlets around the world from Australia to Serbia. Her work can be found on helenofdestroy.com. She has a bachelor's from the New York University, has studied at Columbia University and New York University, and is also a violinist. And this is the coolest part. Not that violin is not that cool, but she is a theremin player. Welcome.
Whoa.
Welcome, Helen. Hi.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming on the show.
We're really thrilled to have you, and we've heard you play, and it's beautiful. And
great to be here.
We hope we get a little treat, but no pressure.
Perhaps if the time calls for it.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Now we've watched some of your broadcasts or your broadcasts from your groovy apartment there, and you do it on another network, I believe. But we've watched you a few times. Are you still doing that these days?
Yeah. No, I still do broadcasts with Harry Vox, and I do individual ones and have guests on and whatever. Haven't really been doing a lot recently because I've been involved in other things, but hopefully we'll get more videos going soon.
Good.
That's good. Now we know that you live in New York. Would you please tell us what what life has been like over the last year in New York?
It's been surreal. Let's put it that way. If I could pick one word, it would be surreal, because, you know, I moved here for a reason, and that was because New York was where everything was happening, at least back in 2005. Makes me feel old to say that, but I realize people have been here their whole lives, and they're seeing even worse things than I'm seeing, because they lived here when it was really something, and now it's really nothing. And it's just like, I'm a musician, obviously, and so I like to play music with other people, and to do that you have to have an audience. Well, I mean, you don't have to, but it helps to have an audience, and so that you can give them something and give this music, and they can react to it and enjoy it, and it's a whole thing. But you can't do that if you have an entire city full of people who are unwilling to lift a finger. And it's the thing that gets me the most about what has happened to New York is that this is not being imposed by outside forces. There's not cops standing on the subway beating you if you take off your face mask. That was never a thing. They were saying that they were going to give you $50 fines, but that never happened. And the cops will just sit there if you don't have a face mask on. That I should know, because I never wore one of these things on the subway. And the cop just sit there. They look at you. They don't do anything, because what are they going to do? Like, walk up in your face? And
Right.
they feel pretty silly doing that. They are cops. They are, at least most of them, actually have a thing about, like, actually caring about crime and not face masks. But it's people actually do this to themselves. They're with just a sign saying, "Don't be this guy." I've posted a couple of them on Twitter. I know you've seen them, because I think you've reblogged a couple of them. But like, with these like stick figure faces, and they're all looking around with their mask and looking sternly on the guy in the middle who doesn't have his mask on. Don't be that guy. Okay, that's really subtle, and they're huge posters too. They're giant, and they take up the entire subway car. So apparently this is the thing, and also the celerity at which it goes from being broadcast on CNN, "Oh, you should wear 2 masks now," to transmitted to the subway people, which I guess, I don't know if they watch CNN. I can't imagine they do, because their ratings are so low. But it's they must be getting the information from somewhere, like maybe another network or something, or maybe they just read the signs, and the signs are quickly updated. But I don't think so. At any rate, they have 2 masks on the next day. And it's like, where did they get this information? How did they get it so quickly?
Right.
And why are they doing it? Like, don't they have priorities in their lives? I mean, they're riding the subway. Clearly, they have somewhere to go.
Right.
So I don't know. But yeah, New York has become a complete waste of time. And it's upsetting to me, because I moved, like I said, if I moved here for a reason, this is my home, for better or worse. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else. And while I love it out here by the beach, it's like, if you want to go into Manhattan, I mean, you're wasting your time. There's nothing to do there. Unless you like standing in line with a bunch of people to get inside to a place that has like space for 5 people to sit down. And no, it's really cool, because you have to wait in line. New Yorkers love waiting in lines. That's unfortunate.
Yes, we're familiar.
We're familiar with that.
Yes,
that was
San
the thing
Francisco is like
before.
that as well.
That was the thing before the pandemic. But it's really gotten bad now. They just love waiting in lines.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. Well, we're happy that we did move away from San Francisco. We still miss it, but I think that what's been going on there is equivalent to what's going on, what you're describing. I think it's almost worse, because well, I haven't been in the subway there to see what's going on, but the adoption of the masking is pretty overwhelming there, from what we've been hearing. And and then here in Pittsburgh, it's just as bad.
Yeah, it's a compliance test, and everybody is complying. There are certain members of the population here in Pittsburgh that are a little bit more resistant to the compliance test. They're putting up a fight. They're a little scrappier than the rest of them. But for the most part, in Pittsburgh, people are complying.
Yeah, especially when you get into the city. We're just like kind of, we're on the, as I told Stepling, we're in the ass end of Pittsburgh. And
we are.
And so we're the bus that comes out here, half the time the driver doesn't have a mask on. And so that's cool. But like, we're 15 minutes from downtown, so it's not that far away. And so you go downtown, and it's a completely different scene. Wow. And if you take a bus to like where the universities are, there's Jesus, what's CMU?
Carnegie
Mellon
University.
Of course, Carnegie.
Where all the transhumanism bullshit is happening.
And then
which is a stone's throw from where we live. So
right. Yeah. And then University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, they're right next to each other, and it's sort of like there's all these other universities in the same area, right? And you get into that area, and oh my God, it's the mask of hell.
So the university districts are very
compliant. I'll say that they are here too. I mean, NYU is, oh my God, that's a scary place, and haven't even gone uptown to what Columbia is. I lived there briefly back when I went there, and I can only imagine what the conformity up there is like. They were like that back in 2005. I can only imagine what they're like now.
Right.
But it's really ridiculous as far as just. I live at the ass end of Brooklyn out here, literally falling into the water, and people are a lot more chill out here. But for one thing, that half of them don't speak English, which is part of the good part, I would say. Like they're not getting the messaging as hard, and so it's a lot more chill out here. But if you go further in,
do you see a lot of difference in the infrastructure, in the economy? Like, so when we moved to Pittsburgh, it was already what we like to call COVIDized, meaning that there were tons of boarded up, small businesses. It was already financially in ruin. And then COVID came and made it even worse, of course. Do you see a marked difference between prior to COVID and now? Like with
definitely
closing?
Not so much in my neighborhood, but although there are some big clubs that used to be very, very popular out here that have closed and that have big signs on them now saying they're going to be turned into rental shops. Oh, yay, Agenda 21. But if you go into Manhattan, lower Manhattan, definitely it's like a tornado went through there. I mean, you're seeing open air drug dealers, which you never used to see, or at least never used to see in this decade or the last decade, maybe back in the 1970s and 80s, but. Now you're seeing that on the street. You're seeing, just a lot of boarded up stuff, a lot of closed stores. Some bars have managed to be open, although I don't really understand how they've managed after all this time. I guess they had a bunch of money saved up, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, there's some obviously some groups got money to spend, but I don't really know where they're getting it from, and because I know Cuomo didn't start giving out his little dollops of very controlled funding until months had gone by. So I don't know where these people had their spare cash from, but
that's interesting. What's the latest with your governor right now? The last we heard, he was being really aggressive.
Well, right now he's basically mortgaged himself many times over to every single donor. Like this one nipple goes to the ADL, and this nipple goes to the real estate interests, and this nipple is also going to the construction interests. And so he's in so tight that he can't make any moves of his own anymore. And so he has to do what he's told. And that means, of course, vaccine passports for everyone, although that didn't really go so well. He announces it and then Biden pulls out the rug from under him. I thought that was kind of funny.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, I do feel like it's probably going to end up Cuomo's way. And this whole Biden thing is just a waiting game, a show. Like they're sending people around to houses in North Carolina to have them vaccinated. Even while Jen Psaki is on television saying, don't worry, we're not sending people around to homes to actually vaccinate people. And they're literally doing it on TV as she's saying that. And it's like, who are you going to believe, me and your lying eyes? Right. So that's just idiotic stuff. But they're not doing that in New York yet. But that's a yet. Yeah. And I think that Cuomo for now is they're going to keep him on a low boil until it's time to bring him out again. Although he was first in the front with the guns thing. So basically, I think what's supposed to happen is that they're going to have some people go out into the heartland to venture into where the vaccine percentage is not high enough, and then those people are going to get themselves shot, because that's kind of what happens if you're from the government and you pull up to somebody's home when you're not welcome and you don't announce yourself correctly. It's something that might happen to you in this country, that there's a lot of people who are heavily armed and who have reason to be. And that will be used to basically strip the country of its Second Amendment. So you heard it here first, although you probably didn't hear it. You heard it a lot of places.
Well, if you listen to the conservative pundits, because we listen to all spectrum, right? And some of these folks are like, they're not going to pull this kind of crap because the American people are heavily armed. but
That's exactly why they're going to pull this kind of crap.
Yeah, exactly. And so they don't go
Yeah.
there because they don't think about that, right? They think, oh, we're good. We have our guns, I mean, I even heard one pundit say something like, that's why the Chinese haven't invaded the United States, because they don't want to mess with us because everybody's so overwhelmingly armed. And
why would the Chinese want to invade the United States?
Well, exactly. We're too much of a mess anyway, right?
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Yeah.
Well, speaking of forced vaccination, so we come from the perspective of marketing and class war, of course, and also this great psychological operation that's taking place. And you brought to our attention before we went live this incredible ad, so we want to play it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's shocking.
Yeah. So let me share that. Oops. Share.
So it's over there.
Yeah, hang on a second. Share screen. There we go.
There we go.
And it's brought to you by Heineken.
Right. So here we are.
So, yeah.
Get us back on screen. Okay.
And your mic is on, so you can comment as you feel fit, as you see fit.
What?
What?
Just your average nightclub.
Oh, I see. It's the disco era today.
I'm like,
so these are all the folks that were disco dancing back in the 70s.
Exactly. And they're all going to have a great time now because they've behaved and, And look at them running into the ocean. Look at them, well-behaved people running into the ocean.
The knife belongs to the... Oh my God!
Did I not tell you this ad was...
OMG.
Oh my God.
Did I not tell you this ad was evil?
Can you bring us back?
Yeah, let me stop sharing here.
Stop sharing. Stop. Okay.
All right.
Wait,
hang on a second. I need to stop this crap here.
There we go.
Okay.
Bring us back.
Oh man.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow. So the night belongs to the vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Wow.
Yep.
That's horrific. And so this is a psychological operation. This is a marketing campaign and
very
a
much
psychological operation. I mean, I'm speechless.
And if you take that ad, and there was another one that was running around on Bloomberg, Twitter has been promoting these horrible Bloomberg stories for the last couple of weeks. And this latest one was, if you're a grandparent, are you sure you want to move closer to your grandchildren? You might want to just do your own thing because you're 70 years old and you're going to meet someone and maybe have 5 years together and then whatever. They're like really pushing this. Grandparents need to get away from the family and do their own thing and party down because you've got 5 years left, according to Ezekiel Emanuel. Remember, Ezekiel Emanuel is the one who says we're supposed to die at 75. So according to the ruling class own dictates, you have 5 years left and you should spend them by yourself in a nightclub. That'll be really sad because it's filled with other lonely old people who miss their families because they listened to a Bloomberg ad and moved out to the middle of nowhere and to be with a bunch of old people, et cetera, et cetera. Wow. But the fact that the combination of that editorial with that ad, I think, is a 1-2 punch. And
That's it right there. And then, the 1-2 punch.
Right.
That's exactly it.
Then you've got the other side of the spectrum where they're like pushing the narrative of the okay boomer kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So, separating the generations even further and, bifurcating the society or quadrifying.
Basically splintering the society into society pieces as they can get.
Speaking of that, sort of generational bifurcation of society, back before there was any such thing as these unlawful mask mandates, before any of that, which was well over a year ago, I think it was after the March 13th announcement for the national lockdown, JP and I were near the University of Pittsburgh, and we were walking on a sidewalk that was very wide. And these two co-eds, these two college-aged young women, gave us a wide berth. They walked, I don't know.
They went into the street.
They went into the street to avoid us. And I was like, this is it. Like, I think that we've just witnessed the complete and total collapse of the human mind. Like,
and this is before,
I don't know if we can recover from this.
This is in the early days.
Yeah, the early days.
When was it? Like March?
It must have been March.
It was
it was when we were filming for Quarantini.
So it was early April then.
So around there, because Quarantini was our first video essay we did,
documenting
this, the fraud, right? So so we were filming, Pittsburgh footage and coming back from that or going to it, something, and it was just really shocking. Like, it was palpable. Like people in general suck in general, but
yeah, you can agree on
that. But this experience of having these two college age girls like go out of their way to avoid us was like a punch in the gut.
Well, and we, going back to, we were talking about clubs and the concert video we just did. We'd go to a lot of nightclubs, hang around with very young people, who were old enough to get into a nightclub, right? But they were still in school, and we'd go to the things, and they would kind of like not hang out with us, but they wouldn't avoid us, and so we were used to being around young folks. Those young folks, and but to watch that was like, because we're used to, like I said, we're used to being around a younger generation and walking, and just to see that was just weird.
Right, it was really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I had that happen to me the first time. I was with Harry Vox, and we were downtown at one of the first Black Lives Matters marches, because we just wanted to see, what is all of this about? Like, is this legit? Is this a psyop? What is this? Mm-hmm. So we're walking downtown Brooklyn, which is not a place that either of us spend any time, and a woman crossed the street to get away from us. She crossed the street, walked on the sidewalk on the other side of the sidewalk, and then walked back to our side of the sidewalk after we had safely passed, and we're just like, did we just see what we thought we just, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, that is just...
well, we follow a guy on Facebook who's from the Pittsburgh area, and he's one of those people who goes around, and like he finally said, now that the vaccine, now that I have now that I have the vaccine, I don't feel so, like I can stay and I can walk past people with confidence, that kind of thing.
No.
He put up sustainable development models and things like that. And he literally said on his page, it's a good thing I'm vaccinated, because now I don't have to walk. I don't have to give people a wide berth anymore. So,
as if he had to,
that he was doing it in the first place. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I had somebody when I was living in my old neighborhood, which is in the Bushwick part of Brooklyn, which is very like trendy, or was very trendy back when you still had things like live music and art and stuff like that. But I ran into a friend on the street who lived down the block, who I hadn't seen in a while. I went to give him a hug. He practically ran across the street from me, and he's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, dude, I don't have leprosy. What's the deal here? And he's like, no, I don't want to get COVID. And I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry.
So many stories of people who, we have a friend in Chicago. Well, he's like my closest friend, and he ran across a friend of his as well, and he hadn't seen her in a long time, and they have a good friendship. And he reached in to just give her the little hello hug, and she's like, elbow bump. And she put up her elbow to do the elbow bump. And, he's really sensitive and really kind. And he was kind of shattered. Like, he immediately called me, and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. Like, he was really hurt by that. So people are getting hurt.
That's the intention. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of it, unfortunately, especially to the children, which is, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, but.
Well, speaking of the fact that the kids have no future, I think JP wanted to read a portion of one of your articles. Right.
This one is and before I get into that, I just want to acknowledge we have a couple comments real quick. Coag Music
Coag
said something about theremin, incredible sound. Coag, we love your work, and we use your stuff in our videos a lot. So I think we may have used some things in quarantine, which we mentioned a moment ago. So that's cool. So you're awesome. Thank you.
And communitarianism too, I think. Yeah.
And then Grace was our guest yesterday on Bookmark, and I think she's saying her little girl is
a little boy, I think.
Boy. Yeah, because they saw us yesterday, both of them on the screen. Now they're excited to see us.
Yeah, that's
cool.
cute.
This is from U.S. investment giants buying homes.
Why don't you bring up the
MSN? Yeah. So let me bring it up here.
So we're gonna bring up your article, and so people can see that you write for the RT. I highly recommend you follow Helen on this, and
okay. So
let's just get it. You got it?
it?
U.S. investment. There it is, right
okay.
there.
Yeah,
sure. So share it.
There we go.
And then let's bring us back.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, cool.
So this one, JP's going to read a quote that really stood out for him.
Right. So this was towards the end of the article. It says, "We are staring down at the corpse of the American dream, tied like a trophy hunter's kill to the roof of our new electric vehicles, leased, never owned, unaware that we are looking at our own future. Efforts present this atrocity as either new or normal, or both, have been found wanting over the past year, and it seems all but impossible that the element of the new normal will be achieved. But humans are adaptable creatures, and we can con ourselves into pretty much anything."
Right.
I love that, because that's, we've been seeing that over and over again.
The great con, and we're conning the kids, and I think that's, well, can you speak to that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, well, trying to convince the children that this is normal. Obviously, that's the first thing that parents do in a disaster, is not even take care of themselves. It's like they have to take care of their children, and so they spend all of this time convincing their children that this is normal, so the kids don't freak out. But meanwhile, the parent is, of course, freaking out, and they don't know what to do, and they're just flailing. So they grab at the instructions that, of course, the government is giving, and that the schools are giving, and that the corporations are giving. And it's just a chain of, unfortunately, just feeding on human suffering, because the parents they just want to take care of their kid and have a normal life like any human being. And they're not being given an opportunity to even stop and think. It's just thing after thing after thing. It's when is the eviction moratorium going to be phased out? Am I going to have a place to live? Am I going to have enough money to feed my child? Am I going to have a place to send them to school? And it's the thing with the schools is that they're keeping them off balance. They're like from one foot to another. They don't know if they're going to be on the screen the next day or in the thing the next day. And so people trying to find living arrangements and make just regular moves are having a much difficult time than even those of us who don't have children to think of.
Yeah, we've been seeing that around here too, and I was involved with schools to some degree. I was taking children to school via an official means. Not doing that anymore, but anyway, we would see that where some of the schools were open 2 days a week. And these were charter schools, and so the kids would be there on like Monday and Tuesday, and then the rest of the week they were at home on their tablets. And I'm sure these were all poor kids, working class, where the families cannot afford to stay at home to monitor them help them out with their school on the tablet. So I don't know what was going on with these.
Yeah, families. And that's why they're pushing all this daycare and universal pre-K and all this stuff, because they really want a chance to access those kids' brains and twiddle around with what's going on in there. I mean, there were 2 days in which I saw a school bus go by my block. And I at first thought, wait, why is this weird? Isn't this normal for their school? Oh, wait, it's a school bus. I haven't seen one of those since I've moved out here.
Right.
Wow.
And then I saw one the next day, and that was it. I've seen 2 school buses in the last 6 months.
Yeah, and they're holding a lot less kids too. I mean, I was driving a van that held 9 kids.
These were small buses, small streets around here. So
so I was in a van, and I was only carrying. I had a maximum of 3 kids, but I only had 2. And the buses that we did have, the yellow buses, like the 80-seat buses could only carry, I think, like 10 kids, or it was some ridiculous
some
amount
weird
of
rule about the amount of kids that were allowed on the buses.
Yeah.
I think when we talk about, what your article implicates and what some of our video essays have also mentioned, and what other researchers have talked about, is that the poor kids, or the kids who are having to depend on social safety nets in order to survive, are disproportionately affected. There are plenty of people out there who are putting their kids in private schools, or they have figured out alternative ways to to let their kids sort of have the kind of education that we all grew up with in
or
school.
something closer
And
to
these
that.
kids will transition into the managerial class. Again, we always come from the place of class war. So this is a real bifurcation where you're making managers and you're making poor kids, and that's not a democracy, right?
Yeah, and you're conning the parents into believing that by feeding their child to this universal pre-K, universal daycare, whatever system, that they're somehow giving that kid a leg up, when you're actually, no, you're just tagging them, okay, this is going to be future Amazon manager number 665, and this is, it's you're not giving the kid help by sending them to these universal daycare centers. They say, oh yes, your child can learn to socialize with other kids and learn basic skills. They don't even say like reading and writing anymore on these ads. I've seen these ads around, and the quality of what they offer has declined rapidly over the years, and they don't even pretend to say they're going to teach them to read and write anymore.
Right. Or they teach them Blockly.
Right. The little programming.
It's like it's basic visual programming that allows the kids.
It's like a little game.
Right.
Lovely.
It is teaching kids. Yeah, it's a Google application that teaches kids how to program.
Right. 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
So programming before they can read. That's
exactly. So
exactly.
we talk about that in robotics, and the future of employment via how kids are being educated now.
Just to switch it up a little bit, just for our audience, how long have you been writing for RT?
I've been there since 2018.
Okay.
I'm not in my official capacity on this video, by the way. This is just me.
Well, of course.
Right. And I wanted to let our audience know, and our followers, that we first discovered you when you sat down, I think it was with Chris Hedges, and talked about Wikipedia.
That was before I actually worked for RT. That was I was working. Yeah, I was working for Gary Null, who's a radio host, alternative health guy, who he's been on WBAI and all of those. I don't know why he deals with WBAI, because he has a bigger audience than they do. Yeah. Like if he lifts his finger, he's got millions of people, and they have like 5. So I don't know why he still bothers with WBAI, but whatever. He's got PRN is his network, and I was doing research for them, and I did a big research paper on Wikipedia, and he gave it to Chris Hedges, and apparently Chris Hedges liked it and thought it was interesting and wanted to have me on and talk about it. So that was really cool.
That is
cool. And
yeah.
That was our very first introduction to you, which caused us to then look more into you, like look at your website. You want to bring up her website?
Yeah,
oh, my poor website. I need to fix my poor website. No, it's in a state of like slight disrepair right now. I mean, it works. You can look at it, and all the links work and stuff. It's just I've been having trouble updating it and stuff.
Well, that's the nature of the beast with the website. I mean, ours is out of date as well. I mean, it's like as soon as I update it, it's out of date.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
Exactly.
So
I got a bunch of stuff I got to update on there. But all the old stuff is there. It's all good. Everybody should check it out. But
for sure, because you've got a lot of good stuff here.
Really good stuff. I just thought that your investigation into Wikipedia was so fascinating, and then all of a sudden, it was kind of like going down the rabbit hole of information once we started reading your website and looking at your articles, and then watching your discussions with Harry Vox, and all of a sudden it was like, ooh, we were opened up to a whole new world of information and influence.
Too. Yeah.
And on Twitter too. You've got a pretty prolific Twitter presence. Did you want to try to bring that up as well? Or
I don't have it.
We didn't.
Yeah.
But you're at it's
Velociraptor 23.
And
Velociraptor 23.
I think it's in the show notes.
Yeah.
I think I put it in the
Cool.
show notes.
Yeah, because I always like I kick myself for having picked that name, because then I have to spell it every time I go on like a show, or if I even do my own recordings, and it's like Velocirapture, which I already have to do with my last name, and I used to have to do with my street name too. At least the street name is done. I don't live on the street that I have to spell anymore, but it used to be like 3 things that I had to spell if I was going to identify myself. Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, we're always having to spell out our website because the dashes made it hard to. But
Well, so in your creative, so you we've heard you play violin. We haven't heard you play the theremin yet, but we maybe one day we will. So I would like to talk about the piece that really spoke to us as artists that you wrote back in June. So this really resonated with us. It's regarding the non-fungible tokens. In fact, when the term came up, we had some of our own fans say, "Hey, have you guys ever, benefited from NFT or non-fungible tokens?" And we're like, no, we haven't really. We don't know anything about that.
Yeah, so I started reading up on it like at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
and I think that's when you started talking about it with Harry.
Yes.
And
so I think what this is going to do is reinterpret or interpret once again, the art community. And I think that this is a really important article that people should go to and read. It's entitled "Sell These People a Piece of Blue Sky, NFTs, Virtual Reality, and the Ruling Class's Latest Con Job," from June of 2021. And let me just read a quote that really stood out for me. "The rapid rise of NFTs seems directly tied to the fundamental uncertainty wrought by last year's total economic collapse. Millions lost their jobs, and millions more felt the creep of planned obsolescence breathing down their necks as activities like schooling, making music, even having sex migrated online. Many haven't paid rent in months." On the other end of the financial spectrum, the NFT phenomenon smacks of people with too much money trying to find a novel way to entertain themselves, even as human innovative capability spirals downwards. Buying a limited edition pair of sneakers in digital form so the buyer can never wear them is only a step away from the practice of buying a limited edition pair of sneakers in real life, also with no plans to wear them. But reducing humanity to such humiliation, surely we can afford real sneakers, rubs humanity's faces in the ever-widening income gap with the suggestion that there's an entire community of people with so much money they've run out of things to do with it. Is that where we are now? I mean, is people have so much money that they're doing what we're sort of talking about in another video essay, which we will be producing and releasing to the public soon, something called intangible assets, where you're giving value to literally nothing.
That's the thing, is that people's real lives, they've basically reduced people to such penury, or to such just having nothing to do in their lives, that everybody has been encouraged to quit your job, demand $20 an hour to work at Burger King. Okay, well, yes, but no, maybe no, because now you're putting yourself on the hook of the government's universal basic income. And if you decide to maybe resist a certain government move, say vaccination or something like that, then you're screwed. You can't get back in the job that you left. And sorry, I got kind of off track from where we started.
No.
But yes, this is the virtual reality thing becomes the only place where these people can basically be themselves, or have a normal human life, or what they believe a normal human life is, because they've been raised on television and movies to believe this is how people are supposed to interact with each other, and this is what people are supposed to expect to get from one another, and people are supposed to attempt to screw each other over first before the other person screws you, even though that's not how humanity has to be at all. And really, the fact that we're being taught that is really disgusting. But so people retreat into virtual reality, and you need some nice sneakers so you can look good, because you better look good, because this is your only other reality you're going to get. You certainly are going to be going to Mars on Elon Musk's a rich douchebag launcher. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about Second Life in the Globotics video, and another website, another company that was like creating virtual office spaces to where you could work. you could push your little avatar around at work and have meetings with other avatars around a table, and and then like Second Life, there's a whole industry of people selling clothing, designer clothing, and all this bullshit for people on Second Life,
Right.
and you can go to Second Life Burning Man or whatever. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like
they did with Burning Man this year. They tried to take it virtual, and they were actually demanding money from people to do this virtual Burning Man. They had like 7 different levels of virtual Burning Man, some of which were free, some of which were not. Now, like, I've been to Burning Man, I really enjoyed it, but I went to the real one, and like, I didn't do the high end, like, you have Sherpas to lug your stuff around. You come in on a plane to the special landing strip. No, we took a U-Haul from San Francisco and we drove over there. But it was lots of fun, and I really enjoyed it, and I would love to go again, but it doesn't look like there's going to be another one ever, because now they've just decided that, hey, you know what, we can make just as much money, and we don't have to actually give them anything. We don't actually have to, because the Bureau of Land Management over there had been giving them a lot of trouble, and it was going to be last year that was going to be the big trouble one, because they wanted them to have all these huge barriers, and I wrote an article about it at the time. It's probably, if you look on RT for like last June or something, you might find it. But yeah, now they realize that they don't have to actually have problems with the Bureau of Land Management at all. People will just pay money to live their Burning Man memories of years past, and that's really disgusting, because the whole point of Burning Man, at least I thought, used to be like self-reliance and being able to take care of things by yourself and not having the government to tell you what to do, and et cetera, et cetera. And now it's like, oops, actually, it was the opposite the whole time. Tricked you.
Yeah.
Right.
Psych.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're starting to see a response to that. We're starting to see, at least there's one person we know in Pittsburgh who, she's really into the music industry, the local music scene here, and she started, I guess, kind of like a club. They took an old church or an old chapel. It's not in Pittsburgh itself, but it's
25 miles outside.
Yeah, it's a kind of in a more rural area where I'm sure the rules are a little bit more relaxed, but they're turning it into a club, like,
or at least a floating club. I guess it's normally like a martial arts dojo,
right?
So, but
it acts as, it has a couple of different
functions.
Functions. So.
But so she's talking about that. She's doing that, and we've talked about setting up a network of people to create living room concert tours,
experiences and tours.
We're not going to do that ourselves, but I mean, we've talked about how it's a possibility.
I think that's what we're going to have to do, because what people are forgetting in general, and I'm sure you agree with this, is that with everything in life, you have to ask yourself, how am I benefiting from this? Are you really truly benefiting from paying a fee to stream your favorite band or to stream Burning Man? Are you really getting something out of that? Are you really benefiting from that? Not you, but you in general out there. And if the answer is, well, not really, I mean, because some people might benefit from that. Some people might feel a real sense of fulfillment being able to see their favorite band in an exclusive streaming situation, right? I personally need, I want to stand in front of you and watch you play.
I want people around. I mean, whether I'm listening or performing, like the experience of listening to live music, being there in the crowd, is so much different than the listening to it on a CD or whatever. It's
exactly.
Well, yeah, and I, for years before I met Julie, I would watch the live feed on like KCRW, because they always had some great bands in their studio, and and I always knew that it was fun to watch, but I always didn't I didn't get that feeling of being in a club and watching a band and being there with a bunch of other people. It's like I like having that audience around me, and it's fun to watch the energy exchange between the musicians and the audience members, and just that connection there you can't get virtually.
What are some of the ways that you see that happening? This kind of natural response to this unnatural anti-life, non-life stuff.
I was thinking of like smaller clubs, like you mentioned this church thing outside downtown. That sounds actually like a great idea. And there are a lot of these disused buildings. In New York, even there are some, although de Blasio is targeting a lot of those areas for affordable housing, which means pod houses for you and maybe a penthouse for somebody who paid him the right way, or I don't know how the plans for New York keep changing. They've basically, the World Economic Forum put out a thing about reusing office space as pod housing, and then 2 weeks later Cuomo comes out with a thing, we're going to reuse office space as pod housing, and it's like literally 2 weeks between the two. So
I kind of intuited that. I didn't see that from the World Economic Forum, but I kind of guessed that was what was happening, because we were starting to see some crazy shit downtown Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And I'm like, what there's a building, it's the Highmark building, and that's like it's like Blue Cross Blue Shield equivalent, and they are doing a major retrofit on that building. And I mean, you can't even walk into it the normal way. You have to go around all the construction. And I said to Julie, they're probably updating it, but I think they're also setting it up so that they can easily convert it into living space after they're done with the office space. Because, if they set it up right, put in all the infrastructure properly, they can just go in and flip that into housing very
that's the
easily.
thing, because these pod homes that they're trying to build or trying to turn these things into, they have to have the ability to measure every drop of water, to measure every ampere of electricity, to measure basically anything that they can charge money for. They have to be able to measure that. And so that's going to mean that these offices and stuff need to be rebuilt, basically. But that's easy to do right now because there's nobody in them. So that's why people still aren't at work. And this wondering, well, why aren't people at work? People, we've been supposed to return to work for all this time now, and well, why? Oh, yeah, it's because they have to fix work first.
Right.
But as far as where concerts end up going, I mean, it's going to really depend a lot on the climate. I think outdoors, people are going to play a lot outdoors in areas where that's possible. And that's going to be something that they have less ability to control. Although your video showed that a lot of these outdoor festivals, they've already figured quite successful ways to control them. But I think that that's the easiest thing to do in like an outlaw manner, is to do an outdoor show, and then just, well, what are you going to do? Come and build a fence around it while we're playing? I mean, maybe they'll try that, but it would be really ridiculous. And if somebody caught that on film, that would be golden.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
Although, again, we point out a lot of times the loss of the commons, right? So there's a lot of public spaces that are now getting taken over. We'd see this a lot in like San Francisco, where we'd ride through the panhandle of Golden Gate Park and then into Golden Gate Park, and you'd see these areas that would get taken over completely by some sort of corporate event. And it would make it hard to like pass through that actual, corporate event, even though it was public space.
Right.
And, so they would cordon off these areas, and they'd be, these cool little things that only, the people that belong to that particular company, or like things like Salesforce would take over like 2 blocks of Howard Street. So where you couldn't even like ride your bike, walk, or drive through that area, because Salesforce had its annual event, and and so these actual losses of the commons were taking place. And I think this is this was a trend to help us move into that next area, where like you can't even go out and set up a violin, a stand and a hat, and collect money while you play busk on the street.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
I think that's what you've been doing, right? You've been doing some of that just to get out there and play.
Yeah, we've been playing out on the beach at Brighton Beach, the boardwalk there, and I mean, it's great if you got a spot. There's a lot of other musicians who want a spot there, and as the weather gets warmer, of course, people are like more muscling into each other's space, and we've already had some confrontations that were totally unnecessary. But so obviously, I mean, the musicians were not going to be fighting over anything, but it's like it would be nice to have more space to do this stuff outside, and there is only so much space on any given boardwalk or beach or whatever. Right. So it's too bad, because there are only so many more months, and New Yorkers really do want to get out and party. But I don't think that many would, if they had a choice. I don't think that many would sign up for this stupid RFID wristband style. I still can't believe the first story that I wrote for my website was about RFID wristbands at a festival that I snuck into in 2017 with my friend in a boat.
Yeah, that was so prophetic.
Well,
Wow.
We actually experienced that ourselves. We went to Outside Lands, and that's what they had. And they weren't quite set up to the extent of what you were describing.
They're not,
But they were there. I think what they were doing is they were trying them out. Because it was like they were using them for, accessing extra, information or whatever. So you could, easily through this wristband, connect with your friends online and tell them where you are and, and shit like that. Or you could get, virtual, stuff via the wristband and that kind of thing.
They hadn't even worked ours up to the level of like find your friends. It was just like literally, okay, we're going to make this so that you need to have this to go to the bathroom, to buy a drink. And by like 2 hours in, all the merchants were like, yeah, just give us cash because this is really annoying.
We saw that. Yeah, we saw that as well.
Yes, we did. Did you want to show You Wasted a Good Crisis?
Well, let's talk
is that
yeah, let's talk first about let's get
did
back
we miss
to
that opportunity?
Well, maybe, but I think we can return to that opportunity. Simply because you've been talking about, I love how you throw in the term pod homes, pod housing, all the time.
Pods. I mean, I call it pods for pods because they're pod people living in pod housing, eating pods, and being pods. They're all
I mean,
pod life.
I think that this ties into something else that you and I have been talking about, and there's the deliberate taking down of housing via like what you talked about in your article that we looked at earlier that I read an excerpt from. These companies, buying up properties, housing, and turning them around into, rental property that's like corporate slumlords,
right?
And then so there's that, but then there's also this sort of like what we're seeing all over the country, and that is this sort of benign neglect of smaller communities, just kind of like letting shit go. And these areas like Pittsburgh got decimated by NAFTA, and it's been downhill ever since. And I'm going to show you a photo actually. This is pretty sad because what's going on is exactly what we're talking about. This happened blocks away from our home.
Oh.
And this didn't happen because of a tornado. This didn't happen because of anything but pure neglect. What had happened was that, whoever lived there or whoever owned it decided to not keep it up any longer, and they moved out, or they had tenants, and they just once the tenants moved out, they just like let it go. And you see what we're looking at right now. Apparently this particular street, and these are photos. I didn't take these were found on Facebook, and people, I don't know why they took two vertical shots, so I put them together. They couldn't take like the whole thing.
I don't know why people can't figure out the sideways thing with the camera. That is so idiotic.
I know, because I'd like to.
You sound like him. That's what he said earlier.
I'd like to see the whole house, but I didn't have time to run up there.
It's just around the corner from us, but we didn't have time to go there.
But so there's several houses on this particular street that we're looking at that are like this, and you see this all over our community. And it's a result of people not being able to afford to keep their houses up. And then I think eventually what happens is that they move out because they just can't, afford to keep the house any longer.
Yeah, because the city is charging them fines if the thing doesn't look good in the front. At least that's what happens here. If your front of your house is messed up looking, then they'll just slap fines on you until you can't afford to keep your house anymore.
Right. Well, we have an ordinance officer who goes around and does that, and
but nobody pays the fines because nobody can afford to pay them. So one thing that JP noticed when we traveled from San Francisco to Pittsburgh, he drove in the truck. I came earlier with our cat and kind of set up the house. We had to put in some floors. But he said this is representative of the whole country and the media. And since you're a media person.
And you talked about this in your article.
And you talk about this in your article, that nobody's really talking about this this term, it's benign neglect, where the local municipalities and your local government bodies that you pay taxes into to keep the infrastructure from crumbling, they're not doing their job. They're just letting it go. And we saw evidence of it. Well, at least he did.
Throughout the country,
in the truck on the way from San Francisco to Pittsburgh. He was like, there is a United States that nobody is talking about, and it does not look good. Like that picture is pretty much representative of our neighborhood. There's so much blight and so much crumbling streets and infrastructure. And then coming from San Francisco, which is like, a billionaire every 80 blocks,
right?
That, and billionaires city. Like nice things, right? So all the streets are paved, all the houses are beautiful. And those who are, living kind of hand to mouth, kind of like we were, kind of benefit from,
those.
The trickle outwards. It's not a trickle down, it's a trickle outwards. It's a spilling.
So we get a nice cafe to go to.
We get a nice cafe, we get a nice park, we get, nice homes or nice apartment buildings. But we were not of that class, right? So we just benefited from it. Well, there's nobody in that class around here by any stretch. And the municipalities aren't doing anything. So, it's frustrating, because I think the American mindset is to sort of blame the victim.
Definitely. Because nobody wants to think that their entire country is like this, because they're brought up to think America is the best country in the world. So how could any country that's the best in the world let this thing deteriorate to this level? And then they think that it must be only them who are the ones who have failed, because otherwise, America could never get this bad. America is the most awesome thing ever. We beat everybody. We're the superpower. And it's like the junkie sitting on the corner who's just like telling himself, yes, we're the superpower over and over again, and just like taking more of the whatever drug America is on. I don't even know what you would call it, but whatever they are, they're heavily addicted to it, and they can't see the world outside it. So.
Well, one of the things I noticed in your article is that, you're talking about all the alternative news outlets that were just like finding, new words to describe how, everything's just great.
Yes.
That's right. Can you speak to that a little bit for those who haven't read the article? Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, you mean the one on the NFT article, right? You're talking
about?
Yeah.
Well, the NFT, yeah.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah, that one, and also the other one, the U.S. investment giants. I forget which one that was.
Where they're using terminology it's like softly describing what's
the vertical integration of basically the vertical integration of human suffering. Well, it's like, okay, so BlackRock comes along and they own your house, and so you're paying rent to BlackRock, and you don't think there's anything wrong with that, because, well, everybody around here rents from BlackRock. They're just the local whoever, and then you get kicked out of your house because you can't afford to pay the rent anymore because BlackRock has stuck you with too many fees. So where are you going to put your stuff? Oh, you got to put your stuff in the storage facility. The storage facility is owned by BlackRock, who has bought it up a long time ago, because they knew that in getting all of the houses on your street, that they were going to have a lot of people who were soon going to be unhoused and have to put their stuff somewhere. So they put their stuff in the BlackRock storage facility. And now the BlackRock storage facilities are all full up, and these people are living in ever smaller houses. And finally, they get to the point where they have a medical injury. And of course, as we know, the biggest cause of bankruptcy in America is medical bankruptcies. So the person ends up in the hospital. The fees are climbing up, and it turns out this hospital is also owned by BlackRock. Blackstone. I'm sorry, I keep confusing BlackRock and Blackstone, and that's deliberate, by the way. But we've replaced Blackstone with BlackRock throughout the preceding rant. The hospital is owned by Blackstone also, and how does Blackstone know to own all these things in this vertical integration machine? Well, turns out that Blackstone also owns the funeral homes that the people who die in the hospital of the debt incurred by medical problems born from having the stress of having rent that you can't pay, having all of your stuff in a storage facility that you can't afford. And they bought the funeral homes in 1996. So that's how long they've been thinking about this plan.
Wow,
just so
they're
you know.
playing the long game, aren't they?
Yeah, I was shocked when I found out the 1996 thing, because I said to myself as I was reading about the hospitals and about the storage facilities, and they're like, I bet they own the funeral homes too. When did that, let me see when they looked. I saw 1996. I'm like, holy shit. These people know what they're doing. And
this is neo-feudalism.
Well,
let's definitely
they're using a term called vertical integration, which really is neo-feudalism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, speaking of that, let's look at this video that
so there's this video.
We're itching to see it. Right.
We call it the demon video, but it's actually titled "You Wasted a Good Crisis," and it's pretty artistically done. We appreciate it. It's, you know, as creatives.
Capitalism crashed in 2008. Predatory loans wiped out 50 years of wealth gains of the middle class. If not an outright conspiracy, they simply conspired to take advantage. Now Wall Street wants to be your landlord. The housing collapse presented a rare opportunity. Global private equity firms like the Blackstone Group are devising a new rentership society. High rents and weak millennial incomes make it all but impossible to raise a down payment. The convenient claim that millennials have evolved out of home ownership has taken hold. Welcome to the Airbnb future. Feeling left out? You wasted a good crisis.
Okay, so yeah.
Okay, yeah.
2007, 2008.
Okay.
So and it goes on from there. I meant to shut up.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the
show notes.
Yeah, no, it looks well done. I mean, that is basically what happened, is that the Blackstone Group, which I keep confusing with BlackRock. The thing is that BlackRock actually is a spin-off from Blackstone, and the confusion is a deliberate thing, because the more people say the wrong one, the more people can just point at them and say, oh, well, you don't even know the difference between BlackRock and Blackstone. Why should we trust you about anything financial? It's like, you didn't even know who BlackRock was until I just said it. So BlackRock is the one that's governed by this huge AI called Aladdin, which is this massive supercomputer that basically BlackRock is Aladdin, and the guy who sits at the top of BlackRock, Larry Fink, is a sort of dribbling human being. He's got a little bit of that Klaus Schwab melting thing going on, the whole face melting thing at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark that Klaus Schwab has going on in his face all the time. Yeah, so Larry Fink has got a little of that starting, and I think he's more just in charge of guarding the supercomputer to make sure it doesn't go on any self-killing rampages than he is to actually making any decisions. I can't see, he's not a very bright guy, and when you hear him talk about something like environmentalism or sustainability, he's clearly just putting buzzwords in the holes and trying to make sure that the interviewer doesn't challenge him on anything, because if they do, he's lost. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
that's funny. Should be a comedian.
Well, I know
the world is it's the thing is that you have to either laugh at this stuff, or you have to cry, or you have to scream, and sometimes you can do all three. And I try to at least make this stuff humorous, because at least if you're laughing at the ruling class, they don't have complete power over you.
Right. It's true. It's really true.
Yeah.
And we do that a lot. Laughing a lot lately.
Yeah. Well, and then just making, videos that ridicule these people too,
I think that one thing that, you've mentioned also, and then of course the video mentioned, is that we have indoctrinated the millennials, and now I guess the generation after them, Gen Z, I guess, to believe that they don't want to own anything. You will own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
And that, that culminated, of course, in the age of COVID, that phrase, of course, because of the World Economic Forum. But we saw this kind of attitude, this pervasive attitude, long before that, especially in cities like San Francisco, which are 95% rentals. And we've got people that are my age or older, or your age or older, that have roommates, and they're perfectly fine with that. They're perfectly fine, never ever having their own space.
Mm-hmm.
Now I understand people need to rent. I get that. I'm not.
But I mean, wanting to have roommates at any age.
Well, she had a roommate who was in her 60s.
Right. So before I married JP, I had a roommate. We shared a flat, and she was a grandmother, and she really, we liked sharing a space because we were both adults and responsible and whatever. But some people my age live 2 to 3 a household in San Francisco, and that's pretty common.
No, I remember when I was waiting for the subway once, overhearing a conversation between two people from San Francisco, and the one was talking about how she was making $120,000 a year, and she still had to live with like 2 roommates or something. And I was thinking, wow, this place is more expensive than New York.
Yeah,
I had never heard of such a thing. But
yeah,
it's insane, and that you would see that over and over again. There was a story about a woman who's a Google executive, and she moved back to India because she was making a lot. I mean, I think she was making like $1 million, and she had roommates in San Francisco, and that was her choice of like that particular part of town that she chose to live in. But still, it's like, for me to say that is kind of telling.
right. So I mean, so what's cultivated as in this ever never ending, ever pervasive psychological operation that seems to be our lives is that, oh no, you don't want to own anything, you don't want anything of your own, and that
just weigh you down.
Yeah,
it's the sharing economy. Yeah,
the sharing economy.
I started participating in that decades ago with like car share programs,
right?
And I think that they were establishing those things to kind of get us used to this kind of stuff. I mean, at the time, it made sense for me because, in San Francisco, parking is like, it's very few and far between. You just don't
like Manhattan.
Yeah, and so having a car is actually a it's
detriment.
Yeah, so I would take the bus. I would ride ride my bike, and if you wanted to go out of town, you would just get a car share and go do what you needed to do and bring it back. And they had so many of them all over the place. We had a car share program pod around the corner from our house, so it was
what they called them.
Yeah, that's what they called them. So you could pick
You're
them
talking
up.
about like Zipcar, right?
Zipcar, yeah. And there was like another, there were like several companies in San Francisco until they all like folded into like Zipcar and another competitor.
Right. Do you see in New York and where you live, do you see a lot of people fleeing New York? There's been a huge exodus out of San Francisco.
I did see certain neighborhoods. Yes, my old neighborhood, there was you couldn't get down the street without passing like 2 or 3 U-Hauls, and for a while, at least when I was leaving. And as I told my landlord when I got out, he let me get out a couple of months early. I said, well, there's just nothing here. I mean, there's no music, there's no art, there's no green space, there's no nothing except a bunch of ugly buildings that used to be fun to do things. And he was totally understanding. He's like, good luck. And I said, good luck renting your building. It was a nice place to live, but you can't. And then there's some people, I don't know about here because like I moved here while everybody else was supposedly getting out. So, but I do know a couple of people who've moved out of what used to be the cool parts of Brooklyn and have now moved closer to the beach, which is, I mean, if you're going to stay in New York, you might as well stay here. People moving to Long Island, which doesn't make any sense because you're taking the cost of living in New York and you're just moving out of the city. So now you live in, okay, maybe you have more of a lawn, but you still are paying $2,000 and you're like, why? What is the point of that? So, and then now you have to have a car too, because
and then you have to have the car, and you have to drive long distances to get to where you need to be.
And then find parking because that's about as much of a bitch I can imagine as in San Francisco. But I mean, we have car shares here. We have Zipcar, which is very easy to use, which is the whole point. They get you hooked because it's very easy to use. And Uber, of course, which I had my own incident with an Uber driver, which I think I told that on Twitter a while ago. But it was the sort of thing where, like, do I need to put on my mask? And then apparently I did because I got ratted out to the company. And then after that, if I wanted to take an Uber, I had to show that I had my mask on because the guy complained after I asked him if I needed to wear the mask, and he said no, it's fine. So I think they get a share of the fee if you catch a passenger not wearing a mask, because I can't imagine why anybody would do that otherwise. It makes no sense.
Wow.
I feel like last year, so it was last September, our friend from Chicago came to visit us, and we called for a taxi on our app. We were, in sort of the University of Pittsburgh area, and we needed to take a taxi home to our house. So we called for a taxi on the app, and the cab arrived, and the cab driver did the whole Donald Sutherland
pod people, the invasion of the
invasion of the body.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, mask, you must wear a mask.
Yeah, it
And I
was the
like,
weirdest thing. He was this older dude, and he's like,
Oh
he
my
literally
God.
had that face, like you
Yeah.
don't have a mask on it, but he couldn't articulate
and
that
I was like,
because he was just so
he was so
appalled
shocked
and
that,
shocked.
that we weren't wearing a mask. And I was like, I can't wear a mask. And he just slammed the door and took off. And ever since then, we have not been able to get a taxi to respond to our request.
And there's
for a
only
cab.
and there's only one cab company in
And
this
there's
area.
only one cab company in Pittsburgh.
Wow. That sums up a whole lot of things in that one encounter, because that's what it's going to be. If everything's a monopoly and you piss off the monopoly, what are you supposed to do?
Exactly.
It's the same thing with central bank digital currencies. I mean, hello, if you can't, there's all these things about people getting locked out of their bank accounts. I still want to know what the story of Capital One and Enrique Tarrio is, by the way, but I don't know if that was ever resolved. Was it because he was FBI or because he was a quote unquote fascist?
Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that I had interacted with you on Twitter about that story. No, there was a Capital One bank, in a local bank in the East Coast. They have a lot of them in New York. Cut off the account of Enrique Tarrio, who is the leader of the Proud Boys, the supposed white supremacist group that is actually run by the FBI, because Enrique Tarrio was an FBI informant. He gets an email from Capital One saying, actually, I think it was an actual letter from Capital One saying, we can't be your bank anymore. Sorry, you can get your money by doing this, this, and this. And I thought that was funny because it was the only person I had heard of getting cut off from Capital One. And I figured if they did it because he was an FBI informant, as opposed to whether they did it because he was part of the wrong men's drinking club or whatever Proud Boys claims to be, or what men's drinking club come white supremacist organization, whatever it is, I don't really care. And the point is that it's run by an FBI informant. That's the point. Wow. And the fact that Capital One cut them off, I thought, I wonder if they did that to this one guy because they know he's an FBI informant and they're just trying to send a message here. I think that would be awesome. And I think that, and it would make a lot of difference for people because like Chase and other large banks are obviously evil. Like Capital One is a third or fourth tier bank, and they're not so obviously evil. So when you're looking for a bank to put your money, you might think, Capital One, that's a possibility because they don't like FBI agents. I don't like FBI agents. Hey, we have a lot in common. So like that would make people sign up for Capital One, but you can't actually ask them that because then they would get in trouble for discriminating against an FBI agent. So it's like, I want to know the turnout to that story because if it was because he was an FBI, I want to start advising people to send their money to Capital One. But if it was just because they happened to land on that guy, then I don't care because that just makes them stupid.
Well, and this is what we're talking about is very corporate version of the social credit score thing, right? Yeah. Everybody keeps talking about and is all worried about like what's going on and what we hear is going on in China of, like this sort of, Black Mirror thing where your social credit score really counts against you and you keep track of it and everybody knows what it is and, all these things, right? What we're experiencing now is what's going to be in the future. And that is you will not know what your credit score is.
Yep.
Right.
And it will be very corporate and you will just get shut out of, your bank account or the taxi service, because as you say, as you mentioned, everything will be monopolized to the point where it's like, well, you either have that, you either use that service or you don't, depending on your behavior.
Right.
And
which is also very corporate, right?
Yeah, and everybody will be incentivized to rat out everybody else, which is the other thing about the Uber. And I saw this yesterday. There was a story in NextGov, this like site about like future ways the government is going to screw you over. But it was talking about how we need a civilian hacking corps, basically, and so that like individual people who have not had any sort of government training or anything like that can just be given instructions on, okay, here's and go dox this person or go rat out this person or go ruin the life of this person. And like that this should be a civilian corps that we need to have because we need to expand the intelligence community as if it's not already. How many do we have? 17 agencies or something like that. that's way too many. And we definitely don't need an 18th, and we definitely don't need it to be civilian run by just dudes who get something over there, like the way that you get a TaskRabbit thing.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh, we need you to dox Sally next door. Oh yeah. Well, Sally, she
Right.
might have been my next door neighbor for 2 years, but hey, the government just told me to rat her out, so I'm gonna go plant some drugs in her apartment, and then so
Wow.
that's what they want people to be doing now,
I mean,
and that's
that's what was going on in East Germany, right? The
Yep.
whole Stasi thing, right?
That's the
You know.
Stasi. Yeah.
that's why Google bought the old Stasi building in Berlin.
They did what?
Google they were at least looking at renting the old Stasi building in East Berlin.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Well, that makes sense.
Could you be more obvious?
I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
I don't know. Maybe because it was too obvious, but I swear I read about that.
well, I mean, it would
That's
have all the
hilarious.
infrastructure, they need, right?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, they probably learned some stuff from how people used to do things back in the pre-digital age.
Right.
Yeah, it really does feel like they're using the standard of the old, the old way of fascism and applying and upgrading it. It's a marketing campaign disguised as fascism, or it's fascism disguised as a
marketing campaign. It's and that's the thing, is that it's like an infinity. Like, you don't know which one came first, the marketing campaign or the fascism, or the revamping of slavery. I mean, as Alison McDowell talks about in her thing, this human capital markets is just the perfection of the slave trading of old.
Right.
Oh, well, I would even go so far as to say that, our minimum wage, our federal minimum wage system is based on wage slavery. It's based on slavery. So
yeah, just how much you need to keep you docile. And as I said the other day, the ruling class learned that keeping people fed is a lot cheaper in the long run than keeping them hungry. Because if you got a bunch of people who are starving, they will rise up and they will make a mess of your society. But if you got people who are satiated, who have all the barbecue chips and opioids, and whiskey, they can eat, drink, and smoke, then they're happy, and you don't have any problem with your society.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, like we always say, you're not going to see jackbooted thugs knocking down your door, forcing you to engage in a process that hurts you. You'll just have your local nonprofit around the corner say, you should really sign up for our services, and then that's where the wraparound services come into play, and you grow up in that environment and you wonder why you never get ahead.
You never get anywhere. Yeah,
you're always just kind of enslaved to these systems that need you to be poor in order to justify their government funding. That's fascism, that's a human capital market, so a lot of people don't get that. And yet at the same time, I am an anarchist. I am a tried and true, I guess, socialist at heart. I do believe that we need things like social safety nets, like food stamps, and medical coverage, that's supplemented by the state, so
I mean, if we have to have a state, we have to have that, right?
Right, if you have to have it. So it's dicey.
With the medical situation, the problem is that so much of funding for Medicare and Medicaid gets chomped out by the pharmaceutical industry, by all of this huge bureaucracy of if you go on the subway in New York, you'll see these ads for degrees that you can get that don't require any skills or thought or anything like that. And there's a one for medical billing. You can get a degree in medical billing for 2 years. You go to school for 2 years to learn how to bill medical companies. What? This is apparently a big career, and this is a big career that's expanding. If the rate of ads on the New York subway are, and if you can get a degree for it, and they can support ads on the subway for years. This has been on the subway since I first started riding the subway in New York. So this is a thing that's been going on for a long time. But the fact is that we have a big problem with these insurance companies and these pharmaceutical companies. And if you want to pay, I'm all for full medical coverage for everybody in the country, but it has to be paying for just the medical coverage, not paying for the insurance, not paying for this dumb bureaucracy crap. David Graeber, who unfortunately died recently, he had a great book about what it was called Bullshit Jobs.
Yeah.
And it was it mentioned that if 2/3 of the jobs disappeared, nobody would notice or care.
Right.
And he's right, because nobody misses insurance agents. Nobody misses stock stock traders. Nobody misses BlackRock or its keeper Larry Fink with his melting face, or Steven Schwartzman, the guy at Blackstone, who was sick of getting confused with Larry Fink, the guy at BlackRock, whose company he was spun off.
I can tell the difference. Oh my god!
Wow,
so annoying.
Wow.
But,
well, here in Pittsburgh, we were talking about NAFTA, basically taking out the steel industry. There's still some mills here and there, scattered. But for the most part, the steel industry has gone away and was replaced by the medical insurance industrial complex.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
it's pretty intense how pervasive
right.
that industry is in this town.
Right.
It's remarkable.
Everybody works in the medical industry here. Everybody is
Or the medical insurance
or
industry.
the medical insurance industry. That's all
that's
that
actually
there
true.
is.
No, I know a guy who works security for one of those buildings, those buildings that just guards the medical.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like one of them is the University of Pennsylvania, so it's UPMC. And the other one is like we said Highmark or whatever. It's Blue Shield.
Basically.
So you have two companies.
Right.
And
and then there's all these little private medical companies that come up in these other areas, like in our area, which is 15 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. A new medical company just came up. I mean, it's everywhere. It's totally replaced blue collar, old working class kind of jobs. It's all, so you're either,
so it's not a medical building.
You're either like working in the office, or you are a nurse, or you're some kind of nurse's assistant, or everybody is in the medical industry here. And it's really kind of creepy, to be honest.
It is, because it's like the way that that it's a growth industry is that people are going to get sick and die, and that's one thing that you can count on in this country, is that people, for one thing, our life expectancy is going down. That's not supposed to happen in a civilized country. And people are getting sicker because of pesticides and bad drugs that they put in the food and water, and the bad drugs that they give kids. I mean, the fact that there are kids under 2 years old who are being medicated with antipsychotics, let alone that there are thousands of them, is really, really repulsive. And any country that does that should really have a deep look at itself, because that's monstrous, and that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, totally. Did you
want to... I dropped my phone. Yeah. I was gonna reference one of your
articles. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're gonna have a couple of psychologists coming on. We're having Jeff K. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but
I'm not familiar with him. I'll have to look him up.
He's a psychologist, and he's also done this really detailed, crazy, comprehensive article about Korea and germ warfare. So I'm a slow reader, so it takes 2 hours for me to read it. It's a really dense read. But I think what we have is a psychological problem in this country.
Oh yeah,
I think that I recently heard somebody say, this person who's got all of these scientific credentials, and he knows the answers to everything about he's like a virologist and an epidemiologist, and he's got the answer for what's going on in the COVID narrative, which is kind of separate from what we're talking about today. And he's like, you know what? I can't fix this. Only a psychologist can fix this. So, and he's really credentialed, so I think that's where we are.
That's disturbing, because I don't know, psychology was one of the things that I was looking at studying when I was in college, and because I had originally gone to Columbia to study neuroscience, that ended up not working out for a number of reasons I'm not going to go into here. But I ended up at New School instead, and they didn't have a neuroscience program, so I went into psychology. And psychology was the biggest pile of bullshit that I've ever landed accidentally in my life. And I was like, wow, these people just are making shit up. I am not going to be involved in this. I don't want anything to do with this. So I got out of there, and I decided to go study writing, and then journalism ended up being the thing. But it was I mean, psychology, if we're down to let's talk to the psychologist, that means we have no ideas at all. That means we're let's go talk to the storyteller. Let's go talk to the most excited crackhead we can find on the corner, who has the most convincing story of when he was visited by aliens last night while he was smoking crack.
I
So
think that, yeah. No, I get it. I think that what he meant was that we're all under, well, some of us are under such, hardcore mind control.
That's okay.
That we need to get out of this whatever MK Ultra bullshit is happening to us, and
Right.
who better to do that than people who know how the brain works? Is maybe what he meant, and of course I was like paraphrasing it.
Okay.
But
Yes.
I'm in agreement with you. It's kind of bullshit, isn't it? So
it's complete bullshit. But no, as far as we need somebody to fix these people's minds, yes, because this worship of authority, this ability to drop to one's knees and worship at the feet of anybody with a white coat. Like there was a rally in Union Square in New York a couple weeks ago, and I went and I have a lab coat, and I wrote on the back of it, "Trust me, I'm a scientist." And I did that again today. I have these little sciencey earrings, so you can trust me because I'm a scientist. It's like, well, technically, I mean, I took a couple classes in neuroscience and psychology, so I probably have more scientific experience than Bill Gates does. And
right.
I bet I know what's better for this country than Bill Gates does. I have less money than Bill Gates does, so that's a problem, isn't it? I suppose I'll have to walk into the bank and say, I identify as Bill Gates. Can you please give me his account, please? I need the cash from that account.
I identify as him. Yeah.
I identify as vaccinated too.
Me too. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Keep that one in mind for when you get visited door to door by the door-to-door whores, as they are.
I was in the Aldi when the vaccines first started rolling out, and I never wore my mask into the local Aldi, and because this is like pretty hard scrap, working class. Well, okay, I'll have the other side of the coin story but anyway, most people were wearing masks in that store, but like they don't bother me when I go. They weren't bothering me when I walked in. When I wasn't wearing a mask.
Right.
If I was in downtown Pittsburgh, that would be another story. But anyway. I'm in line, and the woman behind me asked me if I had received my vaccine, and and I looked at her and I said, she says, "Did you get your vaccine yet?" And I looked at her and I said, "Did you have your bowel movement today?" and I gave it a beat, and then I said, "You see, because that's not my business either." But being Pittsburgh, she laughed out loud. She's like, "That is funny."
Yeah, so at least because you say something, you never know. You say something like that.
Well,
around here, you might get punched in the face.
Pittsburghers will tell you anything. I mean, they'll tell you their life story at the drop of a hat. That's the way they are here.
Yeah.
And so that was, they thought that was pretty fucking funny.
Were you gonna read a piece from her?
I was gonna, but I wanted to talk about something else, like because you're talking about like the compliance and the, just like people just like willing to have the boot on their neck, and I think that around here, because this has been working class for so long, people are so used to being pushed around and controlled by corporations and by, the places they work for. I would see when I was off to work, I ride my bike to work. So, in the morning, I'd see all these people waiting for the bus, and they'd have their masks on. And this is like 6 a.m. and it's dark. And it's like, okay, Covey isn't looking for you right now. Maybe you should just,
Well, yeah, the whole thing about it having a bedtime in general is like people obeyed that shit. And
right, exactly. Right. But so people around here, even though they don't, for the most part, talking to people early on, at least, before the media got them scared out of their minds that that Covey's around the corner. Before that, people were pretty much like, well, we have to put on these masks because A, I'm Black and I don't want to stick out, I don't want to draw attention to myself, or B, I'm poor white and I do what I'm told,
right?
Because if I don't do what I'm told, I don't work,
right?
So,
yeah.
And the same goes for the Black folks, except then there's that other level of like, I don't want to draw attention to myself because I'm
we've
Black,
had personal conversations with with our neighbors about this.
And Julie's actually talked to people downtown. She'll ask folks about this stuff. Yeah, and and they've literally come out and said that, and and it's like, well, that's what's going on with all that stuff. But so the boot has been on the neck of the people around here for generations.
It's long before COVID.
And we were talking about like the part I was going to quote was about opioids, and like we have a halfway house just behind our home, And the opioid crisis hit this community and Pittsburgh in general really, really hard, to the point where they were giving out, what is that drug, the
Naloxone?
Narcan.
Yeah.
Narcan.
Something like that. They were giving it out like the autumn before COVID hit. And
just like candy.
They were like, we're having a Narcan giveaway downtown Pittsburgh. So, drop by and get a few, Is
it Narcan? It's the one
that basically prevents, like, if you go into overdose.
Yeah, they give them away in downtown Brooklyn and other parts of the city. They have like a sign in the window, like a little N in a circle, and that's supposed to let you know that you can go in and get some. It's a big problem here.
Yeah. And of course, drug addiction, whatever. I think it's because of socioeconomic status, maybe unresolved abuse. I don't, what I mean?
There's a lot of things, and then there's
I try not to judge.
Right, and then in here in your article, you say groups like Blackstone and BlackRock are following the filthy footsteps of the Sackler family, whose Purdue Pharma got hundreds of thousands of Americans addicted to opioids, only to turn around and patent a new delivery system for addiction treatment.
Right. So that was,
and that really struck a chord with me, because this community is that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of communities that are that. And I would say probably overlaps with a lot of places like Pittsburgh, places that have had the major industry ripped out of them for whatever reason, or usually NAFTA, and have been left with nothing else to sustain themselves, or with something that is totally unfitting to sustain themselves, like medical billing, which is nothing to build a city on, nothing to build a country on, certainly nothing to build your life on. But there are so many similarities between like the opioid epidemic and like the private equity way of doing things, that you could probably write a whole book on that. And actually, that's a good idea for another book that I need to write. But I have to finish the other two books that I want to write first.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I just noticed that we are at the 90-minute mark.
Wow.
And it goes fast.
It does.
Yeah. And I know that you can go on for another, hour and a half.
Yeah, we've seen it.
We've seen you do it. But I think we're going to wrap it up here. But yeah, did you want to play anything before we wrap it up?
No, I'm really sticky. It's hot in here, and
no problem. Yeah,
well,
no problem.
So, but tell us where people can find you out there in the world.
You can find me at helenofdestroy.com. Hopefully soon that website will be updated. I swear, I'm trying. You can find my writing on rt.com. Just search my name, and you can find op-eds and regular stories and everything like that. And then you can find me on Twitter at Velocirapture23. That's VELOCIRAPTURE 23. And I'm also on BitChute if my YouTube account suddenly disappears. It's YouTube, Helen of Destroy, BitChute, Helen of Destroy. And once in a while, you'll find me on Vox, Harry Vox's DLive channel, which is dlive.com/HarryVox.
Right.
So,
yeah, I noticed that you were on DLive, and we actually were trying that out.
We were thinking about it.
It's I don't know. It's not really my favorite, but he's got the big problem staying on YouTube. So I mean, they don't want him anywhere near that platform, and they don't really want me anywhere near that platform either. But because I post videos slower, they can't take me off quite so easily.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's others too that we've been exploring as well, and now we're on Rockfin now, so we're
a lot of people I hear are moving to Rockfin.
Yeah,
we'll have to check that out.
Rockfin, though, I mean, it's like you have to apply.
You have to apply.
That's why I haven't. I don't like applying for things. So
yeah.
But,
I know,
but it's cool. It's there's a lot of good people out there on Rockfin. Even if you have,
I've seen them. I mean, you guys are on there. Whitney Webb is on there. Last American Vagabond is on there. Lots of quality people.
Upcoming guest, Vanessa Billy. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
She'll
Cool.
be on soon.
Yeah, so she's on there as well.
Do you have like a Bandcamp or any place that people can go and listen to your music?
You can actually, Bandcamp, I think it's pinklips.bandcamp.com is my current band. And then there's another one for my old band, which people should be able to listen to. Hold on, let me see if I can figure out where that actually is. Oh no, shut up, don't talk. Why is this guy talking? Bandcamp.com/right. Okay, here we go. Writer Pals. This is the good album that we want here. Oh, where we go? Oh, here we are. Okay. That's the link I just sent is the one for a band I recorded an album with over 10 years ago, but it's a really good album, so you guys should listen to it. And then Pink Lips.
Cool.
Bandcamp.com. And then pinklips.bandcamp.com is the band that I'm currently in.
So you're currently in. Do you guys play?
We have played. We played a couple times during the plague. We played outside in the snow.
Really?
We've been trying to find places to play, and it's we played a couple times at Anyway Cafe, which is a nice Russian restaurant on 2nd and 2nd in downtown Manhattan.
That sounds really cool. I'm so
They
glad.
did make it back from the pandemic, thankfully, because for a while we weren't really sure what was going on. And then they were doing this thing where you can only have 2 people playing in any given band because that would take up too much space and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's the Pink Lips. That's the band that currently exists.
Yeah, that's a great one. Well, I'm glad, I'm sad we didn't get to hear you play, but I'm glad that people will know.
Hey, another time, perhaps.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and we'll post those on the show notes afterwards.
So people can go find you there, and then you should let us know like when you're playing. Give us a little lead time.
Sure.
Maybe we'll just rent a car and go to New York.
That'd be great. I mean, you can get to see what an industrial wasteland looks like when the waste happens a couple of decades later than it does in Pittsburgh.
Well, that's Detroit and Pittsburgh and the Rust Belt.
Yeah, no, we different levels of industrial waste. We can see how we could be archaeologists of urban failure.
The stratification of these things over time. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, so we're a little past the 90-minute mark, and we just really enjoyed talking to you. It went really fast.
Likewise.
This is a conversation that we both have been looking forward to for a long time. So we're thrilled that you came onto our platform, and we're so honored to have these discussions with you, and we hope to have you back.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I very much enjoyed it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
We're gonna say goodbye to everybody, but we'll be back with you after we sign off. Okay.
Okay. So don't go away, Helen. We'll be right back.
All right.
All right.
Hey,
guys.
Everyone. So
hopefully you enjoyed that. We really encourage you to go to her website, go check out her RT articles, check out her music, and inform yourself. This is a different voice, and I think that we've learned a lot because of her.
For sure. And we didn't talk about this, but Helen and I email each other now and then. It's very it's very snarky and long-winded and
it's good.
And lots of fun.
You need that sense of humor.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have a kind of a wit about you during this whole process.
There's something to be said for gallows humor, right?
Right. And do like Helen does and have an outlet. She's got her music. It's not all gloom and doom. So I think that
we try not to be that way either.
Right. But we hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and please tune in a week when we do speak to Dr. Jeffrey Kay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably be talking a lot about psychological warfare and germ warfare.
Yeah, because he wrote a big article on the Korean War and the germ warfare that was going on during that time. And it's on Medium, I think.
It's on Medium.
Yeah.
It's really long.
Yeah.
So
Medium gives you the amount of time it takes to read it, and it says it's an hour. So
right. And if you're a slow reader like me, it takes 2 hours.
And I'm slower than her. So
it's a long time.
But we'll be meeting with Jeff at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, because he's in Hawaii. So
right.
We're a number of hours ahead of him. So we'll be doing this show at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So it won't be as early as we usually do. So
right.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to be a patron. subscribe to Rockfin, leave a tip, join Rockfin, make a donation. We're a couple of working artists over here and could really use your support.
Yeah. Or go to Patreon, patreon.com/Book of Hours.
Great, guys.
Right,
thanks for joining today.
Right,
bye.
Book of Hours are artists here to empower and embolden your response to the constant negative sound bites that attack your news and social media feeds. In order to continue making the video essays and art you've come to enjoy, we need your support. Make a one-time donation or become a patron. Thank you.